Welcome, everybody, to episode 16 of the Nesting Eagles podcast. My name is Drew. I'm here with Beth. How you doing, Beth?
All right.
Yeah, so we have kind of an exciting episode. We got a lot to get to, so we're going to just get right after it. Beth and Ken took a little road trip, and where did you head, Beth?
We
This
went
was kind of an epic journey that you two took.
yeah, we went out to Idaho to visit family. It was a family gathering. And we did some side trips on the way. Interestingly enough, such a shock to see birds. Um, but on our cross country journey, you and I had obviously conversed a few times, and I wasn't going to be too far from the Trempealeau nest. So Ken and I tried to squeeze that into our agenda, which was as the sun was going down on the day that little TE3 had branched at the Trempealeau nest. We didn't catch him or her branching, but we did, much to our surprise, catch the activity of the other nest.
Yeah, so the Minnesota nest that we're seeing, Mr. T fathering both the Trumpealeau eagle cam nest and then this second Trumpealeau nest. I
Right.
don't know if I'm not sure if they've named it. I haven't really heard anything, but the
No.
Minnesota nest, I guess. I don't know if
Yes.
there's any real name for it at this point.
Yeah, and we don't technically know that he's fathered them, but he is certainly
Yeah.
at least a surrogate father to the Minnesota nest. Um, so what was great to see is we did see two adult birds over on the island where the second nest is, and we saw, count it, two eaglets, which I think they said eaglets are over there. But then there's something interesting about these eaglets. So here is one of the parents calling out on the island.
And this
And
is an island out in the Mississippi. So it's right
Mississippi, right?
Wisconsin Minnesota border, which is Mississippi. The Mississippi River borders the two states. So that's what we're seeing here. And yeah, a
The
second.
river is carved up. One side is
Yeah,
Minnesota, one side is
yeah,
Mississippi. So it's kind of hard, it's not
yeah,
like you can really tell.
yeah.
Um,
We are assuming, and I think RRP had said this too, that the second nest is on an island
right,
on the Minnesota side. So I think we've gotten confirmation that that is a Minnesota nest,
right,
not a Wisconsin nest. So not
right.
one of our, but interesting nonetheless. So
So we have a two-state love affair going on here
yeah,
with Mr. T. So this is the other adult in another tree. And then this is a brancher, at the very least, if this is the nest tree. And honestly, I cannot tell you which one is the nest tree. You cannot see anything that resembles a nest at this point, but we know we're in the right place. And then a boat came around the corner of this island and got very close to where this eaglet was. And I had seen something flapping down below it earlier, but I just saw movement. And when the boat came close, the bird that I couldn't see took off out of the leaves and started flying around. And so there are two eaglets there are two, I believe, fledgers now.
yeah,
It's either a brancher and a fledger or two fledgers that are at the Mr. T second nest.
yeah.
But
That's exciting. Very exciting.
I think honestly, given the Trempealeau nest and the activity of the single eaglet in that nest, that these eaglets were hatched first.
Yeah, I mean, we can. It's not.
I
We
can't
can't.
say it with certainty, but
Yeah, we can't say it with certainty, but they all have, just to kind of reiterate what we've talked about in the past with fledglings, that 10 week to 14 week is usually kind of the happy zone. most of them are around the 12-week range, but they're all different as far as when they fledge. We've had some, I think Beth, if I remember correctly, we've had some that are like 17, 18, 19 weeks, which is crazy. There's some of them that just won't leave the nest. So,
Velcroed in.
yeah, so we'll have to see. I know the update from the Trumpealeau Eagle Cam nest is, there was branching, but it's still a nestling officially, that eaglet.
Yeah.
It has not fledged, but it looks like their half brothers or sisters or whatever have apparently fledged. So that's really exciting. So, and that looks like a nice flight the one took here,
Yeah.
the
It
fledgling. Yeah.
tried to land in a couple of places and
Yeah.
then thought better of it and kept moving and it kind of circled the island twice.
Yeah.
So it was definitely spooked by the boat.
Yeah.
The one that was branching out there never moved. So
Yeah, unfortunately, that's we would note it as the Nest Watch, as our Nest Watch. We have a category on our data, and that we I would consider that a disturbance. Unfortunately, if a boat gets too close and an eagle flies and is disturbed by that, we would have noted that as
right.
part of our nest. So that's unfortunate. We never want to do that. That's just kind of a lesson too. It's just bad etiquette to get that close. I know there's probably a fair amount of traffic on the Mississippi around these nests, so they probably are used to some of it, but obviously in this case they got a little too close.
Yeah. From my perspective, and there's distant these photos are heavily cropped. They were taken with a 500 millimeter lens, so I have cropped in considerably to get you this image, and the sun was setting, so the lighting is a little strange, but it looked to me like the boat was possibly right underneath the tree limb that looks
Yeah,
like it's hanging out over into the water. So it would have been for birds that have been hiding now for a while in a leafy private space. That's got to be a little unnerving to see
yeah,
something come right underneath you, which you wouldn't be used to. Um, so we were, we had a very small window to see this nest before darkness set in, and we were very excited. We did 1,000 miles that day.
yeah.
Neither one of us wants to get back in the car anytime soon, and our AC went out, so that was even
Oh
more
man,
fun.
yeah,
So we had squirt bottles that took us forever to find that we filled with ice and water, and we
yeah,
just, I mean, that's how we got through it, which I'm too old to play that game anymore.
yeah.
Um,
That's that's brutal.
I don't think I was ever old enough to play that game.
Yeah.
So this is our little Trempealeau eaglet still in the nest who
Yeah.
has branched.
So this is
Um,
T3, I believe is what.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's a great shot. Yeah, and as you can see, we were talking about this before we started filming. On that right hand side, if you can see it, like that is some of the wiring for the Nest Cam. So that's really interesting to see. So you can barely see it. It's very discreet, and it kind of gives you an idea. I mean, the actual camera's not in the shot, but they do a really good job, especially RRP.
yeah.
They've been a long time. They do a really good job of hiding it and not affecting the eagles when they're in the nest. So I know there's some that you get those eagle cam shots of the adults or the hatchlings or whatever, kind of like staring into the camera,
Yeah.
but they're pretty discreet as far as where they place the camera, just so it's not affecting any of the behaviors or affecting the eagle family. So
So this was her or him just hanging out um, in the nest. We were lucky we caught a break through the trees where we were able to snap a couple of pictures um, and then made our way out of the area so not to disturb the bird too much. And this is, I'm not sure if it's mom or dad, but it is one of the two birds that the adults that were on the island. It came over and it started to go towards the nest, but it sort of diverted and it had a small fish in its talon and it dropped it. And then it landed on top of the tree.
Yeah.
So
So
again, all of these pictures are cropped.
yeah.
Um,
So if we have, if there's somebody that's sees our pod and is better in tune with the Trumpealeau nest, if there's, I know there's people that watch us that you know, watch this nest and maybe there's a distinguishing feature on there, and if you can tell us, add that in the comments. We'd love that.
yeah, because you
Is this
can't.
a male or female? I'm not even going to speculate.
No,
I know this nest well enough to admit, but maybe somebody else, one of our listeners, does know, and that would be great. Let us know in the comments.
yeah.
This mom, is this Mrs. T or is this?
I assumed it was more likely Mrs. T since she
Yeah,
brings in the bulk of the food, although I don't think Mr. T is without doing some chores as of late. They have three eaglets that the three of them have raised together.
yeah,
Certainly, Mrs. T is responsible for helping to raise the two chicks in Minnesota because she did a
yeah,
lot of hunting that
yeah.
afforded
So,
them life in that nest. And
yeah,
I think that's something, that I personally feel, like Mr. T was getting a lot of flack for coming over and stealing fish, but they have some sort of an agreement here. She wouldn't let him just take fish
yeah,
away from her eaglet if she wasn't offering it up for the other nest. So there is some sort of an agreement here, and he is not a thief, and she
yeah,
is just obviously a very good hunter. Um, but again,
yeah.
we aren't for certain whether we're looking at her or him. I'm assuming it's her, but she came off the island, so that makes me think maybe it's him.
Yeah, yeah. So if as I said, if one of our, please comment if you can identify the eagles. I know there are some subtleties that I know from my past nest that I could tell female male even when they're not together, because the size is going to tell you a lot. But if they're not sitting next to each other, there are some subtleties that if you're really in tune to the nest, you can tell. But hopefully somebody can let us know. So that would be great if you can do that. So, but yeah, that's a beautiful shot, Beth. You
Yeah,
and Ken, amazing job of getting these pictures. That's great.
I really can't believe we
Yeah,
managed to make it because it had been pouring just before this. So, I mean, we
yeah,
just lucked out in a number of ways.
yeah.
So while we were driving in, though, we did notice some other nests that were very nearby. So this is
Oh wow.
obviously a dead tree in a marsh,
Yeah,
and we have an adult with two. Well, one's definitely a fledgling, and the other is possibly a brancher.
yeah. It'd be hard to tell, but yeah, probably both pledged. But it's again, you'd have to do a little more
Right.
observe. Yeah, and as just the lay of the land here. This is right on the Mississippi River, so there are a lot of nests. This is prime real estate for eagles and fishing. So, um, and I'll let you get back to that. You saw some other nests, so
And this one I'm sure is Wisconsin because it was in the marsh of the Mississippi, so it wasn't out in the, real flowage area. So I'm sure this would be Wisconsin.
yeah.
And then
Ooh,
this
yikes.
one gave me a meat coronary.
Yeah,
And um now this is again heavily cropped, but when I looked at it on the back of my camera and it appears lighter out than it really was
yeah,
at this time. It was getting pretty hard for um to focus. It was getting really dark. So when I looked at it on the back of my camera, um is my mouth showing up on the picture?
yes, yeah,
Okay. So that little bit of what looks like white right there, I thought it was an osprey.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
And then I just happened to go ahead and blow up the photo so I could see it better just to confirm it was an osprey. And I'm like, holy moly, that is not an osprey.
yeah. So that's a fledgling or hatchling at an eagle nest. Wow,
Well,
yeah.
it's got nothing really to branch on, and
Yeah.
I don't want it to branch on those power lines.
Yeah, yeah, that's tough. But again, with the territories, and I saw this a lot. I think I talked a little bit about when I was in New York, but that happens on the Hudson as well. When you have these big, great territory rivers, larger rivers that they can support a number of nests in a tight area, and our typical territory in Wisconsin is a 2 mile radius, but in a lot of cases it's much larger. But when you get to these spots, like kind of like people too, you have they're much tighter together in these great areas for nests and for fishing for eagles. So you'll see that a lot. And obviously this adult pair that built this nest and are raising these young decided we can't find a tree, so we're going to use man-made stuff, which is not very typical in eagles, but it does happen. So
It's more typical for ospreys,
yeah, for
which
sure.
is why I was leaning that way, because
Yeah,
as you know, in one of our counties here in Wisconsin, we have almost an identical looking nest, and it is osprey. So,
yeah,
but it was such a built up nest, it's like, oh, it had to be an eagle nest at some point.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So again, I'm a little concerned too. That gives me anxiety looking at it. So hopefully it does okay, and hopefully those there are different types of lines. There are some that are raptor friendly and others aren't. So hopefully
right.
those are raptor friendly. I don't know off just from looking at them if they are or not. So fingers
And
crossed.
as our watchers would know, it's
Yeah,
really rough to be a surrogate parent to
yeah,
eaglets in the nest, which we all feel like we are because, we're vested in watching them and making sure that they fledge well and get off into the world. And you certainly hope that with this situation that it's not as tenuous as what it looks like.
yeah, yeah.
That
And I
is
mean,
way the heck up there too. That was a very tall
yeah,
structure.
and I mean, it looks like that does not look like a first year net to me.
No.
That looks like it's been around for a little while. So yeah, that's yeah,
And
little
who
scary.
knows if anyone fledged yet too. We could have
Yeah,
had other eaglets that were in the nest, but
yeah,
have since taken off. And then one of the things that I noticed, and I can't remember if we discussed this or not, was as we were driving across country, both we took two different routes, going and coming back. But you spend time in South Dakota and Wyoming, and it's like or South Dakota, like why don't we have just zillions of eagle nests there? Because there are, major river
yeah,
ways running through a lot of these states. And as we were discussing it when we were driving, it's like, where are the big trees?
yeah.
And you don't want to say it's necessarily habitat loss, but or it could be, but is it just the geology of the an elevation that are dictating whether or not a tall tree can even grow there and what kind would. Um, so I think that keeps um, nesting eagles to a minimum in some of those states where like you have the Missouri River or the Salmon River or the Snake River. Some of those just um, don't have the trees of any real girth around to support the weight of a nest.
Yeah, for sure. I think you see, from living out there and driving through there, you see a lot of red-tailed hawks. You see a lot of hawks around, but nothing. You'll see occasionally eagle. I remember we saw an eagle go over. We're in Wyoming, and it flew over the highway. But yeah, it's definitely not as common, even though there are the rivers there to support an eagle. It's just kind of similar to what we were talking about to reference back to our when we were talking about Milwaukee County being the last
Right.
county in Wisconsin to get eagles. It's kind of similar there. There had been so many trees cut down first, and it took a number of years for them to grow to be large enough. And now we are getting nests and nesting eagles in Milwaukee County. So maybe in due time there will be trees big enough to support eagles, but at this point, not a whole lot. So that's it's just the habitat. It's not great for them.
Yeah.
They might as well as we see around the Mississippi, they'd rather use the Mississippi and those big rivers if there are places to nest and support and breed in that area. So
Well, as you know, in Montana, we saw several bald eagles, and
yeah,
we got down to Idaho where we were spending some time, and people would say, "Oh, yeah, there are eagles. I regularly see one in this tree. They live in this tree." And I would say, "Oh, there's a nest there." And they would say, "No, but they live there a lot." And they would give me a couple of different locations where they would see eagles um, hanging out. And so, you know me, I was determined, and I found the needle in the haystack. And that was pretty funny to be able
yeah,
to find the nest, which no one was aware,
yeah, yeah. That's very cool. Yeah,
and just staring at us from across the river.
yeah, yeah. So they're out there. You just got to kind of look around. They
It's
are,
far, far away. It was not
yeah,
something you were going to find unless you had seen a bald eagle disappear somewhere in that area and then took binoculars to it. So
yeah, yeah,
I just got lucky.
yeah.
Um,
That's happened to me many times. So
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, most of life is about being lucky.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so this is local. This is my nest locally. Ken and I do this nest together. We've been with this nest for a long, long time. And just this morning, we went to go do our observation on the nest. And this gray blue gnatcatcher just was obsessed with this poor eaglet and fledger. So this is Y2, young two. I think this was the middle hatched eaglet. And this is yet another picture. So this bird left, came back, and dive bombed its head again. Left, came back, dive bombed it again. And you can just see just the anxiety rippling through this fledgling. And I say that as a joke because it could care less.
Like, what is this thing doing? Yeah, so this is if you are familiar with bird behavior, this is a typical. It's called mobbing, and a lot why it's called mobbing is it's usually a group of them, but there can be a single bird that'll do this, and it's just harassing. It's basically harassing a predator, so it won't go to this bird's nest. And as we know, this eagles could care less. They don't even prey on birds this small, so they could care less. But for whatever reason, the bird takes it out on this poor fledgling that's trying to.
Well, it's got a nest nearby, and this is a big
Yeah,
predator, so it's trying to protect its family.
yeah,
And so it flies at the bird, trying to get it to leave the area. And the fledger could have cared less. And in this photo, you can see its nictitating eyelid is
yeah,
closed. So as the bird would get close to it, it would shut. This is a transparent eyelid, which I think we've said before. I could really use a pair of these.
yeah, yeah,
So they can still see out of it, but their eye is protected in case the gnatcatcher was to hit it in the eye or drop food or whatever. Talons, little feet come at its eye. It's better protected. So this one just made me laugh because it looked like it kind of sneezed the gnatcatcher out of
yeah. Yeah.
its
So
beak.
that's where you get that mobbing behavior. I've seen a number of them, and Beth, you've probably seen them.
Yeah.
And if anybody, Instagram or whatever, Facebook, a lot of people get that shot of a, red-winged blackbird or other smaller songbirds kind of riding on the back of an eagle. So that's
Well,
what they're.
I've seen news stories too where they reporters are poo-pooing the fact that a bird is riding on top of another bird because I
Yeah,
have seen birds land on top of a flying fledgling trying to drive it out of the area.
Yeah.
And I've seen just about every bird do it to them.
Yeah.
Kingbirds, orioles, just a huge assortment of birds will take on a fledgling. Once standing on a lake here in where I live, there were two mature bald eagles flying down the side of the lake, and it was three or four crows went after them. And Ginny, who's another watcher, we were standing there watching these two bald eagles, and the crows were just relentless. And a couple of the crows had dropped off, and this one just kept going after the eagle, and they're flying away from us, so they're getting a good distance away. And I'm shooting photos, and I said to Ginny, that crow is asking for it. At some point, that eagle's just going to get annoyed enough. It's going to do a barrel roll, and that's the end of that crow. And no sooner was it out of my mouth than it did a barrel roll and just plucked that crow right out of the sky and went down to the ice of the lake and had a meal of crow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I mean crows are on the food menu for eagles. Not high up there, but yeah, it's you do hear that and not a good idea in the
Yeah.
crows. Yeah.
Gnatcatcher, not so much. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just a gulp.
They'll that's pretty much like a little fly for an eagle. They don't care.
A McNugget. It's a single
Yeah.
McNugget.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Not worth
shouldn't be advertising.
yeah, not worth it.
Um, as I told you, we were out in Idaho, and I've got to say, if anybody ever gets the chance and they're in the Boise area, they should really go to the Peregrine Fund and visit them. They have a drive that they recommend through some grasslands and down to some canyons. I believe it's the Snake River that runs down there. Could be the salmon, but either way, there's a canyon land where you can see all sorts of birds, and they have um, golden eagles. Golden eagles had already fledged with their young. But this is a bird that I have heard a lot about, but I have never seen, and it is a wild ferruginous hawk, and it is, believe, the biggest hawk in the United States. But it is only out west, and I just thought that was a gorgeous bird.
Yeah,
The feather color is just outstanding, and Ken actually caught this photo. We passed the camera to whomever isn't driving at the time. Um, so we were really excited to see this, and we knew it was something very different. But um, the Peregrine Fund has one, and we did sort of a behind the scenes thing with the Peregrine Fund. And I went from looking at a red tail, and I handle a red tail, so I know how big they are and how much they weigh. And then we saw a Swainson's hawk, which is about the same, looks like a red tail hawk. And then the next mew down had a ferruginous hawk in it, and my reaction was, "Wow, that is a big bird!" And it just shocked me because you can see descriptions of birds, but until you see it in person, it's kind of a shocker when you see um, the actual girth and size of them. So.
yeah, they're a big hawk for sure, and I think I think people do sometimes. Oh, there's a golden, so they're that big that
Yeah.
they can be misidentified as a golden. So yeah,
Well, it
those are
certainly has, this one has golden color in it. It's just not
yeah,
the nape of the neck. So,
yeah,
and it has a yellow beak. Um, but yeah, if you get the chance to, I recommend it. We did a behind the scenes, and we spent time with a hawk, a raptor that I have always wanted to see, and we actually got to see two of the birds that we were most interested in seeing. So it's worth it if you go visit the Peregrine Fund to do a behind the scenes where you adopt a bird. It's a couple $100s to do the full package, but I figured I was not traveling to where my bird lived, so I wanted to see it in person, and we were actually able to feed it. So,
wow, Yeah, that's awesome.
It
Yeah.
was a pretty cool experience. So do stop by the Peregrine Fund. They are an amazing place that they're the reason we talked before the book Return to the Sky. It's the reason why bald eagles are on the East Coast is because the Peregrine Fund hacked them back into nature there after they were sort of decimated by DDT and habitat loss and lead and
Yeah.
rat poison and all the other things that we've kind of done to make a raptor's life difficult. Um, uh, and certainly brought the peregrines back, and they do multiple other birds. I did not know that they hacked harpy eagles or a variety of other different types of peregrines. So they're involved in other nations. So they're doing a lot of work that is really admirable.
Yeah, great organization. If you can donate to them, I would highly recommend them. They're amazing, amazing people. And again, um, they started out in the University of Cornell area, and then moved out there to Idaho. But yeah, they've been doing a lot. They've saved and conserved a lot of different birds of prey. So it's great. And then also involved in the Castrals, American Castrals too. They're involved in that program as well. So yeah, they
And
do things.
I gotta say, and I can't believe I didn't say this when we had Brenna on here with us. I could not believe how many kestrels I
Yeah,
saw.
yeah,
Kestrels were just unbelievably abundant on this circle route that they recommend that you go on to see birds in their native habitat. But we just saw kestrel we saw six kestrels hanging out together. So I'm assuming two adults with their four fledglings. Yeah, I mean, I see kestrels almost every day here in Wisconsin, but not like I was seeing in
yeah,
Idaho. It was really impressive.
yeah. And unfortunately, they're for whatever reason, I don't think they've figured it out. But on the East Coast, they're just
Declining.
numbers are declining, unfortunately. So hopefully they figure out what's going on. It's mostly probably habitat loss and a number of things, but
It's
uh,
always east and west of the Mississippi. The Mississippi
yeah,
seems to be the great dividing line for success or failures,
yeah, for
are
sure.
doing well on one side and not on the other.
Yeah, yep, for sure. But all right, yeah, that's Fergies. They're awesome. I saw some when I was out in Colorado, so that was fun because the Colorado Eagles, because they are basically grassland birds. They've kind of evolved, and they take on mostly mammals, prairie dogs and rabbits and that kind of stuff is the main source of food. You'll see Fergies too, kind of hanging out in eagle territories, and it's crazy to see them together. But yeah, the eagles are still much bigger, and they're bosses, so they'll clear them out. But you do see it a little bit. So
It was funny to try to identify things when they were in the air because when things are flying, you don't have a real perspective on size. And I was trying to make these because they have sort of a white underbelly and then they have wing bars, and I kept saying, well, it's kind of peregrinish looking,
yeah,
but that's not a peregrine wing shape. But it's like I was trying to force a square peg into a round hole. And then, thank goodness for Merlin. I work with raptors and
yeah.
I have to feed the Merlin app with my photo in order for it to tell me what I'm looking at. So, you keep trying to pigeon toe what you know into that shape, that coloration, and it's difficult to do.
Yeah, because you don't even think about that. If you grew up, like us, I grew up on the East Coast. You grew up in the Midwest. Like you don't see these types of
No,
birds. And you go out west, and there's different ones, and you're like, what is that? Is that a
bec-
golden? What is it? So
right. Because
yeah,
that beak is bigger than a
yeah,
average hawk. It,
yeah, yeah. They're good sized birds. So yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So a lot more pictures. I have I downloaded this one. So in Trempealeau, that's as far as I've gotten. Um, so I don't know, endless laundry and
Yeah.
getting us all back up on our feet.
Yeah, but we'll go over probably we'll do some fun pods during the summer and the off season, and we'll probably hit up some of your trips, some of the trips I'm going on, and kind of branch off from different birds of prey and stuff. So that'll be fun too. Stay tuned for those. In the summer, I guess the we call it the silly season, I guess, because it's not breeding season. So we'll try to fill some content with stuff like that. So.
Well, we'll try to update you on whether the blue-gray gnatcatcher is still alive also.
Yeah, it's probably fine. I doubt they
No one's
they
going to try to bother to catch it.
yeah, no. But so anything else, Beth, or
If I had something else, I've
yeah.
forgotten, Drew. So,
Okay, all right. Well, let's make sure to like, share, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you have any questions or any comments, um, use the comments below in the video, and also if you want to email us, nestingeaglespodcast@gmail.com. And I think with that, we'll sign off. And I'm going on a little road trip now, so maybe in a few weeks we'll do another pod. But um, I guess we'll say goodbye for now.
all right, if I can figure out how to end this, yes, we will. All right, thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to like our podcast. Thank you.